안녕하세요. 저희 이름은 아가입니다. 지금 원자력 공학과 학생이에요. That basically means now I'm a student of nuclear engineering because technically I'm still a student. I'm a student of nuclear engineering. If I wanted to say I'm an engineer, it's Konghak. Engineer is Konghak. Yes. Do not sacrifice. Look for a far more holistic growth. Don't be somebody who you're going to have vertical knowledge in one field. Maybe you are good in books, and then if you're taken out of class and put somewhere else, you can't do anything. Look for a far more balanced, a far more nuanced existence.
So, Agar, thank you for making time to come on this channel. We really appreciate that. We are not taking that for granted. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So, great. Aya, so where I want us to begin, I don't know if you still remember those composition and insha prompts that we used to be given in primary and high school. You were given a prompt and then you were told to. So I want to give you a prompt and I'll explain why I'm giving you this prompt. So nuclear energy sounds super scary and dangerous, but yet it has enormous benefits, particularly for developing countries like Kenya. Fafanua.
So the history of the universe is nuclear, right? Most of us who subscribe to the whole Big Bang theory, we know that the immediate product of it was stars, right? I usually tell people whenever I'm talking about nuclear power is go outside and look up in the sky and you'll see a literal nuclear reactor, right? The sun is a nuclear reactor. Within the humanities context, we found a way of harnessing the power of the sun inside some of these nuclear reactors. Of course, it's a totally different form. It's not fusion, which is not normally happens in the sun. It's more fission, which is just the splitting of heavy atoms. So nuclear is nothing weird. It's nothing strange. We've had it for how old is the universe? 13 billion years. And it's only in the last 100 years that our species, human beings, we've been able to harness it in a way that we can use it to improve our people's lives. In most developing countries, we've not really had it that much. It's only recently that we're starting to explore seeing it as something that you can use to fight climate change. And yeah, so the work is cut out for people like me to try to spread the gospel. I do more of preaching than actual nuclear tech. Ever since I came back, it's usually talks. It's usually meeting youngsters in universities, telling them that this is a very rewarding career path. And hopefully in 20, 30 years, we'll have a few reactors here.
Yeah. No, and like I mentioned, and thank you for explaining. Like I mentioned, it's really commendable. It's really commendable. Like I was telling you, I actually did not think we had a nuclear scientist or nuclear engineer in the country. I feel like Kenyans are really well read. So well done on the journey. But it's good you mentioned the preaching part. I want us to talk about I want us to talk about your journey. How has it been like trying to teach people the benefits of the nuclear energy? Because I think people just know the negative. And the reason why even I started with saying that nuclear energy sounds scary and dangerous, many people, I think they know the negative side of nuclear. And the reason why I'm bringing that question, I watched a really well done video you did sometimes back during, I think you were in first year in Korea, daring abroad. And I was checking on the comments and Kenyans are like, no, we are not ready for nuclear. If we cannot maintain our roads and floods are sweeping us, how will we manage nuclear? So how has it been? Or what are people missing about this nuclear energy? Like what are people missing?
Yeah, so I think this goes back to my very first year when I was in Korea. At KAIST, what normally happens is that in your first year, you don't have a major. You've not declared a major. You basically study everything. You study physics, chemistry, biology. There's introduction to computer science. There's mathematics. Just very elementary stuff. And at the end of the year, we were given a very simple task. You're supposed to design an energy solution for an ICU unit in a certain town. And you can do any. It was a very open-ended sort of project. Similar to those capstone. I think you've done capstone courses before. Yeah. So people really struggled. Like for me, I wanted to design like a solar-powered ICU unit, and the problem was that it's at night there's no sun. So I had to design a battery, and one of the constraints of batteries, I realize, is the cost. Just the amount of battery you need to sustain somebody who's hooked up to one of those ventilators is too prohibitive. Someone in rural Kenya cannot afford it. So I decided to do a bit of an unconventional thing. I said, why not just connect this ICU unit to the grid? And the professor was like, okay, connect it and then tell me what comes up. Then I connected it, depending on where it was. Number one, we considered if the ICU unit was in Kenya, for example. I remember I chose Kenya, Indonesia, and South Korea. So the moment I did that, I noticed that, surprisingly, an ICU unit connected to the grid in South Korea is a lot cheaper to maintain than an ICU unit connected to the grid in Kenya. And that was very weird because I'd always assumed that electricity is electricity, that there's no price, there's no... It doesn't. You see the way a dollar has a certain value in Kenya and has a different value in South Korea, for example. I always assumed that wasn't the case for electricity. And so I decided that I was going to connect it to the grid in South Korea. And very fast, I realized that the reason why electricity is so cheap in Korea is because they have a nuclear fleet. It was an eye-opener because everything I knew about nuclear back then was nuclear bombs. I knew about nuclear bombs. I knew about Chernobyl accident. That's one of the things people normally ask me quite a lot. I knew about Fukushima. It was around the time Fukushima had happened, right? And I was like, these guys, these Koreans are going full on in nuclear technology. What do they know that I don't know? And I've spent the last couple of years, almost 10 years, answering that question. Yes.
Okay. So how has it been telling or sensitizing Kenyans on the benefits of nuclear? So you want to tell us, Agar, that the blackouts we have in Nairobi could be a thing of the past if we embrace nuclear energy?
That's one of the shocks when you go to somewhere like Korea, and I'm sure you've also seen it in the US. Blackouts practically don't exist. They do not exist, which for the average Kenyan, where every week you have your lights going off, it's amazing, right? And the reason why they do that is because there's stability in the grid, something that you don't get with the renewables. I normally tell people that the debate is not about renewables versus fossil fuels or renewables versus nuclear. The debate is fossil fuels versus nuclear. End of discussion. Like the whole renewable thing, it has its space, but if you're going to actually save people's lives in an ICU, for example, you have only two options. You either have a diesel generator or you have a nuclear plant. Yes.
Because you need the power to be reliable.
Exactly, reliability. So the constraints are reliability, safe, and we also have the constraint of greenhouse emissions, right? It's the age of we are basically on a roller coaster heading towards disaster, and you're supposed to pull back by removing the amount of CO2 we are emitting. So I think there's something I'll mention here because I hope whoever is going to watch this will have it registered in their mind. The fastest way to increase your carbon footprint on Earth is to use solar and wind. That's counterintuitive.
How?
Right? It's because for every 1 unit of solar you have, you must have at least 9 units of backup of something reliable. And most of the time, it's not nuclear when you're doing that. It's fossil fuel because people are so scared of nuclear that they would rather have a coal plant than a nuclear power plant, right? Which is just amazing, right? Yeah.
Okay, so is that the reason? Because from the same video, like I mentioned, I was just checking the comments, and generally I feel like many people did not understand the whole nuclear energy thing. And someone was saying, especially in the case of Kenya, someone was saying we have a lot of solar, especially in the dry areas, and we have a lot of geothermal energy or hydropower. They were like, why can't we utilize or like optimize these renewables rather than talking about nuclear energy?
Yeah, like personally, in as much as my training is as a nuclear engineer, I consider myself an engineer first before a nuclear engineer.
Yes.
There's a space for all these technologies. There's a space for them. Like, it's very rare that you're going to find any country on earth that has gone full ham, I'm only nuclear, or you're going to find a country that said, I'm going to be 100% renewable. It's usually a delicate balancing task, very similar to, I think you've come across convex optimization, where you have like an objective statement and then you have constraints. So depending on the constraints, right? The constraints might be cost. Yeah. Say, for example, I want to give someone in Samburu electricity now. Of course, I'm going to use solar panels. But if there's a hospital close by that's going to be built, I'm going to try connect it to the grid and all that. So it's a mix. It's a salad. I like to call it a salad.
Oh, I like the analogy.
Yes.
You mentioned like you do sensitization and preaching. Where do you preach? Where do you find where do you group people, or like where do you preach this gospel of nuclear energy?
Yeah, so the most recent place I preached it was there was an AI conference in Sarit, and so the conference was supposed to start on a Tuesday, and I saw it on my Instagram feed on a Saturday.
Yes.
So I literally messaged those guys, hey guys, I'm a nuclear engineer in Nairobi. It's the first time I'm in Nairobi in I don't know how many years, and there's this thing happening, and I want to talk about nuclear. And they were like, yeah, come on, talk about it. As long as you have AI mixed in there, they're okay with it. So there's that one. Last year, there was a very nice conference we had in Nairobi called the Africa Young Generation in Nuclear. And we had so many people who are not exactly in the nuclear field coming up. And what I try to do is, it's one thing to be in a laboratory running simulations. It's something completely different when you sit down with someone who's interested in learning what you know. Because you get to understand even what you've studied a lot better when you explain it to someone else. So it as much as it's preaching, it's more of a discussion. Anytime I meet someone and I'm trying to talk about nuclear power and everything, it's a discussion. I get to hear their perspective of nuclear, and they get to hear my perspective, and the end result is a far more nuanced understanding of this technology. So I literally hustle for places to go and preach. Yes.
I must say you're doing very well. You're doing very well, Agar, because not many people, I think you had an option of just staying in Korea or wherever you were doing your graduate studies, and we'll come to that. You had an option of just staying there and living a good life, I suppose, but you chose to come back to Kenya, or at least look for ways to preach the gospel of nuclear energy and see how nuclear can help Kenya. Maybe not, if it's not now, maybe it's somewhere down the line. So I want to know if for anyone who wants to learn more, assuming they missed your sessions and they want to learn more about nuclear, particularly in the Kenyan context, where can they read more? Or for the nuclear students, because I know Kenyans are well read, and I'm sure there is someone else who studied nuclear or nuclear scientists or whatever, or interested in studying nuclear and nuclear energy. Where can they find resources or how things like those?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of generic resources that are available online, but I usually tend to discourage people from going there because it's very easy to be misled. A lot of information that is relevant to someone's opinion of nuclear is very localized. So one of the things that I've been working on since I came back was setting up a Nuclear Society of Kenya, and that's one of the issues we're going to address. We're going to localize nuclear technology and engineering and all these things. There's so many things happening around the world in the nuclear field, and we're going to create like just a very nice Kenyanized version of it, so that we're going to be able to have people who are going to be able to answer some of the questions people have that are very specific to Kenya, right? One of the questions I'm normally asked is, okay, you've said that nuclear is very safe, but Kenya, we are not known to be very safety. We don't really have a very nice safety culture. So those are some of the things you're going to work with. Yeah. So the Nuclear Society of Kenya is going to address so many things, and that's at the very top of the list. Yes.
Oh, how do people join? Is it open to anyone? What are the requirements to join the NSK?
Yeah, NSK is going to be very different from other professional organizations because we understand that nuclear is... So we are not the custodians of nuclear technology. We are not custodians of nuclear technology. We are just people who understand it different from the public. So our hope is that once we have it up and running, we're going to have the very technical side. Of course, that's going to be full of professionals, the guys who've studied nuclear engineering, the academicians, the nuclear physicists, the medical physicists. And then we're going to have the general membership, where people are going to have the same privileges as these others, only that these other people are the professionals who are in it, right? And that's something we're hoping to do in the next couple of months. The registration for our society will come out soon, and then we'll have a proper launch, and we'll invite as many people as possible. The idea is not to... We're very different from other professional organizations where we don't want to keep the circle small. we want to expand it so that as many people as possible feel that nuclear is theirs.
Okay, great. So,
Yes.
how do they get in touch in case they have questions on the NSK membership and etc.?
So that will come. That will come in the near future, because right now we're supposed to come up with a website. We're supposed to come up with protocols on how to engage the public. We're supposed to have a communication team and all that. Those are things that are going to evolve over time. Right now we are very few. We are plus you, of course. We're now 21. Yes, we're 21, but it's going to grow. We're going to grow, and we hope that as many young people as possible can take up this career. And in 20, 30 years, I say it's not a sprint. We're not sprinting towards getting a nuclear power plant. It's a marathon.
Okay, I like that. Okay. There is so much in this topic, I think, as you can tell, and just because like people have lots of questions regarding, or people are scared of this nuclear thing. So it's really good. It's really good that you are trying to sensitize people or have discussions around it and how it can really help the country down the line. So let's pause there and go back to how did you even get to know about this nuclear? Well, Kenya. Things that people study.
Yeah, Kenyans are all over the place. You go to the most remote places and find Kenyans there.
Nuclear, like you just finished high school and you said you want to study nuclear. How did you find yourself in nuclear engineering?
Yeah, so I think me and you, we did KCP around the same time, right? 2008, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're practically age mates. So
Yes.
I did KCSC 2008, Maseno School, and
Okay.
I joined the University of Nairobi, the typical.
Hapo nayo ulikuwa shule yako ilikuwa bana. That is a national school, so we are not the same in that way.
Kuna way you have a PhD, wewe unasema nini bana? Wewe uko na PhD unasema ati we are not the same. Alafu ni PhD from Oxford, of all places,
No, I was just comparing, like in the 2008 when we were sitting for exams, we were like, these national schools, they'll be getting all the A's and sisi tutakuwa huko chini. But anyway, you go on.
But the thing is, just to mention that, Gladys, I think that Kenya we have a sort of hierarchy mentality that I don't think really helps that much. This is a conversation I was having with a friend of mine yesterday when I told him that I'm going to be talking to you today. And we were saying that rather than this whole national school and this whole provincial school and whatever school, district school, it actually influences the mentality of the students there.
It does.
Right? It influences the mentality of the children there, because the kids there think that there's a limited set of opportunities out there, and these opportunities are only for the national school people, and they're only for the people who go to this school or people from this region, which is very unfortunate, right?
Yes.
May I say that any bright kid, depending on the environment you put them in, they're always going to thrive. Wanna look at you now. Back in KCPE, if somebody had told you that you would be a PhD, an authority on aerospace, you would have laughed at them, right? But the fact that you're taken and put in an environment where you're able to maximize your potential made you who you are. So I think it's something I hope that the guys who make the decisions on top understand. This categorization where you're telling kids, it's literally one of the hardest day of their lives, right? The day when you get your KCPE results, and then you're already telling this kid that your future is already written in the stars. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you for that. I hope, I don't know about the new, because I know there will be some changes with the new educational system, but hopefully things do change for sure. Because when you go to a school which is ranked certain way, immediately you just feel like, okay, even my grades and my ambition and my whatever should be ranked almost like that way.
Yeah. Me, I know so many people who practically beat me during KCPE, but because they didn't get their first choice, they went to a school that they felt they were settling for, then they just gave up. And now someone who you knew was very bright and would have done very well had they been put in a different environment. Now it's an existential crisis. They're in their 30s. They compare their dreams right now to what they had dreams when they were 14, and it's a huge contrast.
Yeah. I hope that will change. And also for the students who are listening to this, I know most of my audience are students in high schools and in undergrad. I hope you guys can get from this or can learn from this that your situation can change, and whatever school you are in, you just do the best there, and then you take the next step and you keep optimizing your opportunities wherever you yourself.
Yeah, I really encourage them to do that. And it's always, in Kenya we have this sort of mentality where something like, we have so many people who are going through existential crisis because of this particular thing where they were told that more or less they're not good enough. But people keep it to themselves. I know so many people who I meet someone I knew in primary and they went through this, and it's only after I've initiated the conversation that they open up how they've never healed from that whole society telling them they're not good enough and all that. But it's a very important step to rejuvenate yourself and to rediscover yourself, to acknowledge that there is an opportunity. Whatever did happen during that exam happened. It doesn't mean anything about you as an individual. You script your own destiny.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I 100% agree. So let's go back to your story.
Yes.
So you did your high school in Maseno, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I did my my high school KCSE in Maseno. Yeah, got the A. And then back.
Say.
But do I say? And then back then we used to have those 2 years we have to wait for regular. I waited the 2 years. I wasn't really doing much back then. I was just playing video games at home and going to the gym and going to play rugby and all that. But when I joined campus, I won't lie, I was very disillusioned because back then everyone who I considered my friend went to do medicine, and then I was the only person who decided to go to do electrical engineering, the American wing up to University of Nairobi. And I actually dropped out. I actually dropped out.
Okay.
I dropped out because I was very disillusioned. My idea of what it meant to study, because I've always been a bookworm, to be truly honest. I've always been somebody who, like, high school was very different from the person who I am internally. Because high school, I went to a school where I was required to be good at sports. I played rugby extensively. Like between 2005 and 2008, when I was in Maseno School, we won the national twice, in 2006 and 2007.
What?
Right? But that wasn't the person I was. It wasn't the person I was. The person I was someone who is nerdy. I'm nerdy. I like playing video games. I like choral music. I like reading science fiction. So the fact that so many of my friends went to do medicine, people who I played rugby with, and I was sort of isolated from them.
Okay.
It sort of traumatized me, to be truly honest. And the only coping mechanism I had was to drop out. Luckily, when I dropped out, there was an opportunity that emerged. There was an Olympiad that was being hosted by KAIST here in Kenya. Apparently I was the only person who understood maths. So I did the Olympiad, I led, and I was given the opportunity to go to KAIST to study something. They didn't tell me what to study, they just told me come. Yeah.
Okay. Let's pause there, Agar. I have so many follow-up questions, and we'll pick up from there and how you found yourself in South Korea. I have a question. Assuming you had been selected with your friends from Maseno School to do medicine, would you have dropped out?
I don't think I would have dropped out. As human beings, we tend to really underestimate the value of support structures. Like someone who's in your side, somebody who's known you for a while, and who can see who can call you out when you are sort of deviating, right? So if I had a couple of guys who we played rugby with in Maseno and they were doing with me electrical, they would have been able to center me and tell me, hey, what's up, man? I understand that you're disillusioned, but dropping out is not the solution, right? So those support structures, and I think even you, I'm sure you can talk about it when you're abroad and you're like the only, Kenyan in the class or within a certain mile radius. You get to understand the value of support structures. Like that friendly smile that is there, not trying to impress you, but just it's there for you, right? So I didn't have that at the University of Nairobi electrical engineering. I was just whiling the time away, spent 2 semesters there, and then I was like, this is just a waste of time, so I dropped out. But luckily, within a couple of months, the Olympiad was happening, and I applied, did the exam, and I got into KAIST.
Yes, okay. So did you, before you even dropped out of electrical engineering, did you enjoy the courses did you enjoy at all the electrical engineering part of everything?
I didn't, to be truly honest. I found
Okay.
a lot of academic misconduct that I don't like. The thing of people. Okay, I don't want to smear universities or anything, but I really didn't like the whole end justifies the means mentality. People were just coming to class just so that they can get their grades and they can leave. They would only appear during when it's time for cuts and all that. And it was very different from the person who, my inner child, my inner child has always believed that, I had been led to believe that exams test what you know, and not, it's just by the way, you see. So seeing
Yes.
that being discarded in that way really traumatized me, kinda, and yeah.
Okay, and I really appreciate that, Agar. Thank you for sharing, because I know I was helping some of my mentees apply for university courses, and they are currently planning and preparing to join university. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think they might learn a thing or two from your story. So thank you for shedding light on that. Let's go to KAIST. So the Olympiad was it the maths Olympiad, or what was it?
Yeah, it was a mini Olympiad. There were like 15 questions, mainly calculus, to be truly honest. Calculus, single variable calculus. It wasn't very complex.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, it was just a set of questions, and we were supposed to do it in a specific period of time. The good thing with me is
Yes.
that it happened like 3 months after I dropped out, kinda. So the things were fresh. I'm sure had they gone to University of Nairobi, like my class, and picked a couple random bright guys there and put them with me, I would have been demolished.
Yeah. Yes.
So it was. I think this thing they normally say about luck basically is an asset to people who are prepared. You have to be always prepared. You never know where the opportunity is going to come from. So I think mine is a typical example of that. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So luckily then you found yourself, I feel like, better opportunities, because then you went out and you went to South Korea. Tell us about.
Yes.
Were you the only one?
So there were a few Kenyans there. Not Kenyan. There was a Rwandese guy. I'm sure he will watch this video and he'll comment wherever you put it. I'll make sure he comments there. There was a Rwandese guy. There was a Zimbabwe. There was a lady from Zimbabwe. There was a guy from Tunisia. But undergraduate, I was the first Kenyan. I was the first Kenyan to be admitted to undergrad at KAIST.
Wow.
We had people who would come for masters, like 1 year program, and then they would leave. But for undergraduate, I was the first one. And we have a few Ethiopians.
Wow.
Like the year that I joined, we had 5 Ethiopians, and then it was me. So those were the only Africans. And we ended up bonding, and we formed a very nice Africans in KAIST society, and it's still running.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm very curious to know where the connection now between, because you did a little bit of electrical engineering, but then how did you decide to do nuclear?
Yeah, so initially in the very first year, to be truly honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like when I was going to KAIST, that time when I was entering into the plane and I'm going to, all I knew is that it was a university that was in the top 50 in the world, and I would decide when I got there, because in the admission process I'd already been told that you are allowed to study anything. So on the very first day of classes, my intention was to do computer science, to be truly honest. But then I realized that the computer science we are taught is completely different from the computer science at a place like KAIST. It's very tough, it's very competitive, and you have kids there who've been in science high school. So KAIST is very unique in the way that it admits students. Like the Koreans who go there, basically they go into these science high schools. They're basically being primed to get their PhDs by the time they're 26. So they study all the way up until sophomore level, things like maths, physics, biology, computer science, while they're in high school. So when they join undergrad, they actually normally transfer credits from high school, if you want to know how crazy it is. So they transfer credits, like they do some of the courses in high school, so they transfer credits. So yeah, I entered one of those classes. I had my classmates were people who had been programming since they were like 6 years old, and me, I was just some random Kenyan from Maseno School.
Yeah.
So I had to find a place to fit in, and then we had that capstone course towards the end of the year, where I discovered that nuclear was
Yes.
a very good source of electricity, very safe, very reliable, very clean. And that's when I decided that I'm going to pursue nuclear engineering.
I
And it's
suppose
been,
so. I
what,
suppose
12
so.
years now since then.
From even the reason why you chose electrical engineering, I feel like you always wanted to do engineering rather than say even medicine, even despite your good grades.
Yes. So for medicine is mainly because I hate the sight of blood. I hate it. Like I don't like seeing blood. And then like while I was at University of Nairobi, like when we used to have practice for the mean machine, my friends who are doing medicine would tell me how they went for anatomy classes and they would cut up cadavers. I cannot.
Okay.
I just cannot.
Okay.
So the only option, like Kenya is very restrictive, right? If you are, I don't want to use the word good academically. Like if you are, okay, good. If you're good academically, the only options are engineering,
Yes.
med, maybe law,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But those are very restrictive. Out of those, I think the only thing that I would be comfortable doing was engineering, and electrical engineering is a good option.
Yes.
So yeah, I decided to do it.
I want us to pick from South Korea and your journey there, the challenges and the opportunities. But before we go there, I want you to, for the high schoolers who will watch this, and I know many people are talking about the UK, the US, they are going west. For someone who would like to go to South Korea, for a high schooler who would like to go do undergrad in South Korea, and I imagine you studied under scholarship. Number one, where do they get these opportunities, like the scholarships to do undergrad or even say masters? And yeah, let's begin from there. Like where should they look?
Yes. So in my particular case, the scholarship that I got was specifically for KAIST. So it was the university giving me the scholarship. But there's a very popular scholarship called the Korea Government Scholarship Program that annually awards, I think, about 10 people from Kenya.
Okay.
That is PhD, undergrad, and masters.
Okay.
And most of these issues, it's just about reaching out and grabbing them. Most of us, just as you mentioned, Kenyans and Africans by extension, we tend to focus so much on the West, assuming that all opportunities are in the West. But there are very, very good opportunities out East, right? We have so many universities that... So having an international student as part of your cohort in class at university is a good thing for the university because the world boundaries just exist on paper. Right now, if you're an engineer here, you're competing with another engineer across the world. So in order for engineers or students of engineering at a specific university in Korea, for example, to be competitive around the world, it's good that they're exposed to people from different cultures, people from different races, religion, all these things. And that is where I want our Kenyans to grasp. That's an opportunity. You are an asset to this university. True, they're doing you a favor by giving you an opportunity, an education for free. But at the same time, you're doing them a favor by being there because the students there are able to see someone from a different culture. They're able to see perspectives that are different. So I always encourage, apply for these universities, then have the problem of, you don't know where to get a bank statement to prove that you can't go. Apply for them just blindly.
Yes.
Then start looking for that bank statement. Go to the most random university you can see in the top 100 that is in Asia. Apply, make your case there in your application. Say you are native English speaker and all that. Then they ask you for that bank statement of 1 million Kenya shillings. Then come, look for it, hustle for it. Right? Kenyans, we are hustlers. We hustle, literally embody that hustle mentality. Go for these opportunities. You're always going to find a solution.
Yeah. No, and I love that. Let me just add that, just to add to your point, there is a friend I was interviewing, Ruth, in one of the episodes. I think it was episode 1. And she mentioned this thing of synchronicity. I'm not sure if you've heard about it. And it's this idea of, if you want to apply for your graduate studies, you just make the first step. Like instead of just sitting there and wishing that you were studying somewhere, what have you done? Have you checked the website? Have you applied? And so that you are not paralyzed by all these steps that they need you to apply. And then number 2, they need you to have this statement and all that. Once you make that step, through synchronicity, you just find some random person telling you of this scholarship or a professor saying we are looking for a student, but the student, you must have an admission. And guess who will get the scholarship? The person who has gotten or who has at least made some steps and applied. And actually, can we mention that most of these applications are done online, and so that Kenyan students are not scammed for someone to pocket you or have 1 million Kenya shillings to help you apply. Most of these things are just applied online. How did you apply, actually?
Yeah, so for me, what happened is it's after the Olympiad that they guided me through the application system.
Yes.
So the Olympiad was happening, then I went, I got the top mark, and then like 2 weeks later they called me. Then they guided me. Literally, it was a group of Koreans living, staying at there's a hotel along River Road. I don't know why they went to River Road. And so imagine. I think what happened is I went on the website of the hotel and I saw it mentioned that it's 15 minutes away from the airport.
Yes.
So I'm guessing those Koreans, that's what they saw, and they were like, yeah, let's go for this one, not knowing that they're going to go to River Road. So what happened is that I did the Olympiad, and then after doing the Olympiad, I submitted my papers to them. So they went with my papers to Korea.
Okay.
But if you're going to apply to KAIST, they have a very nice portal. They have a very nice portal where you go and fill all your documents there. You upload your transcripts, right?
Yeah.
You have your personal statement. You have your study plan. And Kenyans, we are very good at writing composition. We were just talking about composition back in the day. Literally make a case for yourself. Literally make a case for yourself. Write about your experience, the vision you have once you're done, you're the studies, and you come back home to be a pioneer. That's how you get these opportunities.
Yes, I will, and you will give me you will send me the link to KAIST, and I'll put it here in the description box. And the guys interested in applying, they can just click the link and try. Perfect.
Yeah, actually, even to do it better, I'll send a list of the top universities in Korea so that they have a complete database, like 10, 20 universities, and then they can just spend the next couple of months looking at what fits for them. And hopefully we'll have 2 or 3 Kenyans going to Korea to study, and next time we can have a panel instead of having 2 of us talking.
Yes. Thank you so much, Agar.
Yes.
Super helpful. That would be super helpful. Oh, yes. And
sure,
now,
okay.
Were you required to study Korean language to study your undergrad?
So every course was in English, but of course, if you're going to be in Korea, you might as well learn Korean. So personally, I learned Korean. I would say that on a scale of 0 to 10, I would be at number 6. Like I'm able to shout in the restaurant when I want food in Korean. Very basic stuff. But it was all in English, and the Korean is just an additional value.
Okay. Are you able to welcome our audience to this show? Just say hi, audience. Welcome to GN Inspire in Korean.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 어서 오세요. Basically, that meant hello, everyone. Welcome. Yeah. 안녕하세요. You don't watch K-dramas, K-pop. You don't listen to K-pop, Gladys.
I actually do. It actually sounded like that.
Yeah, exactly. So 안녕하세요 basically means hello. It's the formal way of saying hello. And 여러분 is everyone. 안녕하세요, 여러분. Hi everyone. Then 어서 오세요 is welcome. Basically, when someone knocks the door, you go to 어서 오세요 and then you show them. Yes.
Okay. And how do you introduce yourself?
Yes.
I'm Agar. I'm a nuclear scientist. Nuclear engineer.
Yes. So 안녕하세요. 저 이름은 아가입니다. 지금 원자력 공학과 학생이에요. That basically means now I'm a student of nuclear engineering, because technically I'm still a student. I'm a student of nuclear engineering. If I wanted to say I'm an engineer, it's konghak. Engineer is konghak.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I have a massive respect for anyone who can you speak Doluo?
Of course. Like so, my Doluo is very. I have to defend myself because I know you're going to challenge me to speak a bit of Doluo, but so I have to prepare the audience psychologically. So the Doluo I know is from my mom, basically shouting at me when I do something wrong. I didn't grow up. I grew up in Nairobi. I grew up in Kibra. Yeah?
Okay.
I grew up in Kibra, and so my Luo is very, like, I can listen when my mommy gets angry and she's talking to me in Luo. I understand.
Yes. Many people can speak.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is it. But then, like, you understand the Luo, you understand Kiswahili, English, and Korean. So I think you are just a percentage of few people in the world who can speak more than 3 languages.
But then, Gladys, if you think of it carefully, most Kenyans are polyglots, right? Like you, how many languages do you speak?
Only 3.
You see, even speaking 2 is more than enough. Like, most, say for example, your classmates, your classmates at Oxford, most of those guys just speak like only 1 language, English.
You mean in the UK, right? Yes.
So Kenyans, Africans, we are very gifted. It's very rare that you'll find an African who only speaks 1 language. You speak 3, 4, 5 languages. True. I understand. Yeah. But now 4 languages, you guys are stretching it. But it's really good. It's commendable. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to South Korea at KAIST. What is? I don't know if did we mention the full name of KAIST? What is KAIST? What does it say?
Yes, KAIST means the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. It's an institution that was formed in the 1970s, back when Korea was the word is poor, right? Korea at some point was even poorer than Kenya. They had just gone through a war with North Korea, and the only resource they had were their people. So they embarked on a plan to really empower their people, and that meant doing something similar to what Kenya decided it was going to do with Vision 2030, but only for them they were able to push through. So one of the institutions they set up was Korea, the KAIST. Then they had the research institutes being set up all over the place, right there where KAIST is. So the funny thing about KAIST is that imagine a district the size of like Kisumu, and then within Kisumu you have 50 research institutes. So that's basically what they did. They set up these research institutes, and they wanted to train people so that they can work in these research institutes. And KAIST was formed for that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. So now, because I know it's one of the top universities in Korea, and you've explained in South Korea.
Yes.
How was your undergrad there? I want you to mention just the engineering side. Like, how was it easy adapting to education system over there? And then also, let's touch on the difficulties of us adapting life abroad. So let's talk of the good and bad. Yes, how was it in KAIST?
So the engineering there is the engineering studies there are very intense, very, very intense. There's a video I saw on MIT. Someone was trying to describe what studying at MIT feels like. And the analogy they gave is that, those hoses that are used for putting off fires?
Yes.
So basically studying at somewhere like KAIST is trying to drink from that. There's so much coming at you, but you're supposed to take a sip.
No, I love this analogy.
Exactly. So it was, I had to tap into... To be truly honest, when I was in high school, I didn't study that much. I've always been a person I studied Harry Potter. This Harry Potter book? That's what I studied. I didn't really study that much because the way that high school education is structured in Kenya, I don't think it unlocks that extra level of you. It doesn't allow you to reach your maximum potential. It's very easy to just be around and do relatively well, right? I used to call it the comfort zone. It's very easy to find yourself in a comfort zone where your grades are good, but you're not the best, right? But somewhere like KAIST, you had to struggle because the grading is on a curve. The grading is on a curve, and the grading is on a curve, and the Koreans, you're basically, your classmates are people who've known that they're going to be professors since they were like 12 years old. So they're very driven. So you have to really snap and become better. Yeah. So it was my grades. I think for the first time in my life, I was having C's in my transcript, and it was it really made me redefine who I thought I was. I used to think that I'm bright, but then KAIST told me that I'm not that bright as I thought I was.
Yeah.
But I think it was just the first year. As soon as we chose our majors, then things went back to normal. I was able to really start enjoying my studies. I'd already also adapted to the environment, to the food, to the culture, to the winters and the summers and all that. And yeah, I was able to really thrive, I think. I think I thrived.
Okay, interesting. So the engineering side, as you mentioned, was difficult initially, but then you adapted.
Yes, as soon as I understood exactly what it was that KAIST wanted me to be, then it became relatively a lot easier.
Okay. Can you touch on the challenges or difficulties? How was it just adapting in South Korea? Culture-wise, food-wise, whatever.
I think the loneliness is what got me. The loneliness is what got me, because before that, I always had support structures. Like in high school, the support structure that I had was the rugby. So my teammates, like even the guys who we were like top at Maseno, if you look at all of them are rugby guys. We were guys who used to play rugby with. But then now I had to find something else to connect to my classmates, something else, a totally different way of making friends. And initially I didn't know how to do it, so I was a loner. So already I'm an African in the middle of some town in Korea, and I'm not social and all that. But I adjusted as soon as I got used to the food, specifically the spicy food. As soon as I got used to how hierarchical the society is, like even the way you speak to someone you've met now is totally different from how you speak to someone you've known years. There's a hierarchy involved. You have to bow when you're greeting people. When you're crossing the road and a car stops for you, you have to bow. There's a lot of bowing. Like once I had this Korean software or this Korean add-on installed in me, then it became a very easy thing, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And so you went to South Korea. You were in KAIST from which year to which year?
I was there from 2014 to 2018.
2014 to 2018. And
so as a student, I was there from 2014 to 2018. Then 2019, I was working in the. So you've mentioned that you've watched The Daring Abroad. So yes. I was literally working in the school museum when Alex Chamwada walked in, and I was very surprised because I knew you. Hey, Alex, habari, and was very shocked. Oh, they're Kenyans here. So I was working there 1 year. Then I came back a bit. Then COVID happened a bit. Then I went to Sweden. Then I was in France. Then I was in Belgium. Then I came back.
Okay, now rewind back to you say 2014 to 2018 is when you did your undergrad.
When I finished it.
When you finished it, then how? So you graduated BSc in nuclear engineering.
Yeah, BSc in nuclear and quantum. It was a double major, nuclear and quantum engineering.
Okay. Now, what the heck is quantum?
Well, I know you know what quantum is, but we'll just.
What is recovering from nuclear? Now you are adding something, Agar.
So physics is divided into two. So we have the quantum realm and then we have the classical realm. So everything that happened up until 1900, the classical mechanics, the Newton's laws of motion, the thermal hydraulics, the wave mechanics, all those are considered to be classical physics. Quantum physics is now the statistical version, right? Where there's uncertainty mixed into everything, where everything is defined using probability. What I normally say is that everything we learned in high school, that's classical physics. Then there are elements of quantum physics that we learn when we're in uni. So for me, it's very deliberate. I'm not a nuclear physicist or a quantum physicist. I'm a nuclear engineer. I'm a quantum engineer. I don't care about the big questions. I don't care about, where did quarks come from or where do the neutrons? No, all I care about is what can I do with this knowledge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You are leaving that to physicists. They figure out.
Those are the bright guys. So the bright guys that are let them figure out that. Me, I just want to know how can I use this.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, bachelor BSc in nuclear and quantum engineering.
Yes.
Then how did we were chatting earlier, and you mentioned Royal Institute in Sweden, KTH, and you went to Paris and Belgium. How did that happen? Was that for your masters, I suppose? But how did that happen,
Yes.
and where the scholarship and all those things?
Yeah, so there's the only way to describe this is
Yes.
a brain drain. There is a brain drain program. there's a very, at least it's nice for someone like me who you realize it's a brain drain, then you're saying, no, I don't want anything to do with this, I want to go back home. But they have a
Yes.
brain drain program called the AIT, the European Institute of Technology, and they offer scholarships for energy specifically. It's called Inno Energy. So part of Inno Energy, you have the green energy section, you have the nuclear section, you have the petroleum section, basically energy as a whole.
Yes.
So for me, they offered me the scholarship for the European Masters in Nuclear Engineering, EMINE, European Masters in Nuclear Engineering. And back then I was sort of contemplating what to do with my life, because I'd just finished a BSc, it wasn't a bad grade, and I was like, should I go into academia or should I start working? And this opportunity came up and I decided to take it. So I was at KTH
Yes.
for 18 months. Then I was at University Paris-Saclay for another 18 months. Then I was in Belgium for 6 months. So all this was part of it, this European Masters in Nuclear Energy. All of it was part of it. Initially, the plan was to graduate with a PhD, but ikaniramba, I think that's the word they normally mention. Ikaniramba, I had to take a bit of a break for mental health purposes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No, it's allowed. Like, I've gone through that journey, and yeah, many things can happen along the way, and it's okay. It's okay to pause and take a break.
Exactly. That I like you used the correct phrase that I normally use when describing such situations. It is okay, yeah. It is okay.
Yeah, it is definitely okay. And I feel like, and the reason why, it definitely, like, what's the name? It's not common, or rather, like, society will be like, because I think there is, I don't know if it's from society or whatever, but there is this kind of script, a kind of pre-written and predetermined script where you are supposed to maliza primary school, and then you are supposed to get these 400 marks. Anything less than that, there is a problem. Then from there, you have to go to Maseno. Otherwise, there is a problem if you're not getting like national schools. And then from Maseno School, you have to get this A, and then you have to do medicine or engineering or law, like you mentioned, anything music, and you have an A. What are you doing? Especially, I feel like in Kenya, there is that kind of predetermined script, which sometimes can feel, you try and follow it, and then at some point you're like, it's not fitting my situation. So anyway, just saying, it's okay. It's okay to deviate a little bit, to take a break, to rest, and recalibrate and all that.
Yeah, when you think of it, Gladys, is, when we were doing our KCPE, it was a very interesting time, right? We had 2 or 3, Nani had just left, the former President Moi had just left, and our parents had this sort of optimism, and they sort of gave me, I remember what my mom told me was that the reason why she didn't get to live her dreams is because of the government. And now, Mimi, I don't have any excuse. That's what she told me. I don't have any other excuse. And so those of us, we bought into it. When we were told that, we bought into it. And we were like, the only reason why our parents didn't make it, we're going to maybe live up to the expectations that our parents and our society has for us, right? But then you get to around 30 and you look at the situation and you realize that this template you've been given is not exactly working. Everybody has their own customized journey, right? If you're going to try to live based on what society is imposing on you, then you're going to get very serious problems moving forward. So me, what I normally tell even my classmates, even people who I know, maybe they're disillusioned, it's everybody has their own customized journey, and it's okay to not be okay, yeah? Yeah, so I do it quite a lot. This is another thing I preach quite a lot to my peers and my age mates. It's okay to not be okay. All those expectations that society had with us that we've not fulfilled, it is okay. Yes.
Totally agree. And you reminded me the other day we were chatting with a friend who is also deviating from the script, and we were just this is the analogy they gave me, and it's still stuck in my brain. The analogy was because most Kenyans, I think 99% of Kenyans understand marathon because I think most of our guys run and they are the best, right? Then this was, just imagine on the start line, right? There is Kipchoge there and all these other Kenyans who are like best marathoners, and then there is these other guys like you are 100 of you, right? And then this is they normally set the path. The path is even sometimes illuminated, like you cannot miss the path. But somewhere, especially when you are starting and at the finishing line, you cannot miss. But somewhere along the middle, if there are no demarcations and proper whatever's lights and all that, it's so easy to miss the path. And the friend was telling me, would you rather run like Kipchoge, like at Kipchoge's speed, or late Kiptum's speed, but you are running, you lost direction at miles 20. Is it miles? Okay, let me use kilometers. Miles is going to confuse me. Assuming at kilometer 15 or kilometer 20, you lost the path because you were busy, like you were running so hard, you forgot to check the path. Now you are running at Kipchoge's speed, but now in the wrong direction. But then there is another guy who is not even as talented as you, but this person focused on checking the path. After 10 hours, who would we consider a winner, right?
Yes. I like that you used the word marathon, because that's the philosophy of so many things, even with the Nuclear Society of Kenya. I understand the human urge to rush through stuff because we always feel like there's a ticking clock. But a far more productive thing would be to just take in everything you're doing as you're moving. When you're moving so fast, it's very hard for you to be aware of even opportunities that exist. Using the analogy you're giving, imagine you are running at Kiptum's pace, the last Kiptum's pace. Yes. Then you've missed a watering spot. Uko nyuma, there was somebody who was giving people water. Just do it at your own pace. Take it in as you're running, right? Take it in as you're running. It's always good to ask yourself as you're running whether you're on the correct path. Because at the end of the day, we're going to reach wherever it is you're going. Just because somebody reached there fast doesn't mean that's their own situation. It's not your situation.
Yes, absolutely. I will not add anything to that. So, I'm sure there are so many stories we can share on studying abroad and all those things. But if you look back to when you were, because man, if I look back to when after high school, there is just so much. I think there's so much lessons that I would lecture my 20-year-old self. So I'm curious, Agar, if you look back to when, I don't know, we finished high school when we were 17, 18. We waited 2 years. So at 2021 is when we were preparing to go to campus.
Yes.
So I want you to look back to that when you were fresh out of high school, good grades, and then the journey you've now traveled, like 10 plus years later. What is one lesson you would tell the 20-year-old Agar?
I think so. It's actually not even a lesson I would tell myself. I would tell. I have a small brother, and this is a conversation I had with him because he's around 2021. Is
even better.
Do not sacrifice. Look for a far more holistic growth. Don't be somebody who you're going to have vertical knowledge in one field. Maybe you are good in books, and then if you're taken out of class and put somewhere else, you can't do anything. Look for a far more balanced, a far more nuanced existence, because most of the time, and I think you've noticed it, the thing that is going to make you an asset in a lab, for example, very rarely it's the technical acumen. It's how well you fit in the group. How well can it be that when one of your lab mates is not really having a good day, how are you able to step in? How do you communicate? How do you relate with people around you? How do you explain yourself to people who are not from the same circle as you, right? I think that in Kenya, we tend to really put a lot of premium on stuff that's true, is important, but it's a holistic thing. The word I normally use, it's a salad. It's not just a piece of bread that is manufactured from 2 or 3 ingredients. It's a mix of very many different things. And the more capable you are of thriving in whichever environment you're put into, the better you're going to be than if you're only useful in one specific field, and then if you're taken out of that field, you can't perform. So an all-rounded existence. Be someone who you are empathetic. Empathy is very important. In Kenya, we're not taught that, but empathy is very important. Be someone who you are not arrogant, right? Don't be arrogant in your knowledge. Always be willing to learn, even from people who you consider to be, I don't want to use the word beneath you, people who are not as exposed to you. And you're going to live a far more beneficial life, and you're going to be a lot more useful to the society around you. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's good you've touched on the balancing your life, and I know you have been doing that intentionally. You mentioned rugby, you've mentioned science fiction, like to read, and you're currently writing a science fiction book. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing, but I'm curious to hear one or two of those out of career passions that you have.
So for the rugby, if you ask anybody who knew me in primary school, if you tell them that I would one day captain the Maseno School rugby team, they would laugh. Or if somebody meets me right now and I tell them that I captained that team, they would laugh. But I like the thing that rugby gave me, because I was very small when I played it, and so I had to compensate for it. I had to be a bit faster. I had to know mind games, and it's opened opportunities. Like most of the time when I've been studying abroad, rugby has always been something that I used to socialize. The way we normally say that you need to have something other than academics to sort of ground you, a way of to decompress. So rugby has for a very long period of time. It's only recently that I've stopped playing because I'm getting older. But it's always been something that I used to decompress, something I used to interact with people, to hear their tales. And I've made very good friends on the rugby field. Most of the people I speak to, even right now that I'm back in the country, are people I played rugby with when I was a teenager. And I usually have some people I played rugby with in Korea visiting. Like 2 weeks ago, I had some Irish dude who I haven't seen in like 6 years visiting around, and we met up and we laughed about the stories about rugby. And I'm looking for something to replace it now that I can no longer play. And writing science fiction is a very good way of doing it.
Yes. Do you want to share more about the science fiction thing you're writing?
Yes, so the science fiction story, it's one that should have been completed a very long time ago. It's based on, Luanda Magere, right? You remember that story of Luanda Magere, the man of stone. So it's a sort of story along that. He's the main character in it. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
But it's a good story. I'm a fan of science fiction and fiction generally. I've read Harry Potter. I've read A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read Three Body Problem. So I hope it will be as good as those.
Okay. No,
Yes.
I'm wishing you all the best, because also the writing journey is not a linear path. But you press on, and then we are looking forward to reviewing the book once it's out at some point, at time N or time T.
Yeah, exactly. At time T, yeah.
Where T is it's no bounded equation. Okay.
Where T is on the log scale.
Yes. All right, I like that.
Yeah.
So that there is no pressure.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, Agar. There is this other question, because I know there are so many stories that we can share, and I think this will not be the last chat we will have on this channel. I'm sure we'll have another chat somewhere. But as we wrap up, I'm not normally curious to see or to hear or to just see like people's perspective in the world. And I'm normally asking this question of, when you look at the world right now, I know there are so many things that are messed up, but from where you sit or where you stand, what is one thing that really bothers you in the world that is wrong, and if you had all the powers, you would instantly change or correct?
I think the world is so big. I can't even try to imagine trying to diagnose something that is wrong with it. I think I would make it a lot more local, because I believe in dividing problems into small pieces and then trying to solve them. I think specifically in Kenya and in my age group, it's very important that people realize that as we mentioned earlier, it's okay to not be okay, right? I know we're constantly being bombarded by information that is making us feel inferior, kinda. We see people who we think we are better than thriving, and those of us who we thought that at some point we would be at a specific point, and then it's turning up that that's not the situation. If I could change one thing, it would be to tell anyone who is feeling that they have delayed milestones that it is okay, and someone's race is not yours. You can always flip a switch. Of course, it becomes a lot more complicated if you have a family or if you have people who are dependent on you. But if you've been able to dodge all that, you can always reinvent yourself. And you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You must be your biggest cheerleader. Nobody is going to cheer for you if you're not going to cheer for yourself. And this cuts across the board. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in academics. It doesn't matter if you've started a business and the business is not going the way it was supposed to. It doesn't matter if you've started writing a book and you are halfway through and then you're no longer interested in it. You can always take a break, gather yourself up, look at what's happening around you, take a break and go back and work on it. We don't have to always be firing at 100. You don't have to always be firing at 100. Just as you are saying, you don't need to be running full tilt in the wrong direction. Always take a breather, look back where you come from. Actually, if you focus so much on where you're going and not really where you've come from, you will tend to get very disillusioned very easily. The moment you turn and look at where you're from and realize that you've made all this progress, then you get a lot of psych to continue with the rest. So anyone who's watching this, who's my age mate, who you know me, and we've never talked about this as an issue, it's always okay to be okay. Take your time. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Amazing. That was perfect way to wrap this up. Is there anything, did we forget anything when you look back to your graduate school or life abroad? Is there something that we forgot to mention, or just anything else?
Yes, there's something I think very, very important. So as Africans, we tend to think that we know Europe. Have you noticed that? But then it is only after I went to Stockholm and interacted with Europeans that I realized that it's a lot easier for us to understand Asian culture than to understand European culture, if you ask me.
Really? How so?
So Europe is too liberal. It's too, the way our society here is very structured. We have de facto classes and there's hierarchy and there's a way you treat elderly people and there's a way that you treat kids. And you can walk up to someone in the street and start talking about random stuff. You don't get that in Europe. I don't know how your experience was. Everybody minds their own business. It's very easy to live in an apartment I lived in one for 6 months. I didn't even know my neighbors, which is unheard of if you are in Kenya, right? So Asian culture is very similar, at least Korean culture. I don't know about Chinese. Korean culture is very similar to Kenyan culture. One very interesting thing is mwalimu. Mwalimu is considered to be a very, like you hear the way you say mwalimu Julius Nyerere. It's an endearing term. We look at it as something very valuable. It's the same thing in Korea. Sonsengnim. Sonsengnim literally means professor, or kyosunim. Sonsengnim is like a honorific title that you attach to somebody who is more learned than you and who you are trying to please or something. That's a thing in Kenya, right? Mwalimu, mkubwa, mzito, right? All these words we use to sort of acknowledge authority. Yes. You don't see that in Europe. Europe, it's very horizontal, and I didn't like it, to be truly honest. It's made me very weird here because people like to refer to me as engineer. I don't like being called engineer. I just want to be called Agar, specifically because I spent some time in Europe. Had I come directly from Korea, I wouldn't have minded. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. But also, Agar Bana, you are not a normal Kenyan. You are not a normal Kenyan. The way we like titles.
I don't like titles, and it's because I spent some time in Europe. Had I come immediately from Korea, then it would have been something totally different.
Talking of titles, I remember when I started my PhD, and I was used to saying sir, dear sir, hello sir in undergrad here. Because I feel like people really, professors like titles. In fact, there was a professor who would get so offended. In Kenya when I was studying in Kenya, like if you actually call them by their first name, I think it was considered an offense. But then, so I went with that culture to Europe, and I was calling my professor, dear sir, dear professor, so and so. And at some point, I was like, you know what? Drop all that. I want you to just call me Peter. And it was so uncomfortable in the beginning.
Yeah. For me, I remember just recently I was sharing emails with one of my professors at KTH, and I opened the email with dear sir. So basically, for the next 3 exchanges, he was angry at me that I didn't call him using his name. His name is Jean. He was very angry. No, you have to call me Jean, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yes, I know. Okay, thank you for bringing that up, the comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and for I don't know if we talked about it, but like for any student, assuming they apply to KAIST or any other university in South Korea, and they get in, and or I'm sure there are some Kenyans. You said they normally select 10 Kenyans every year. So for those students who are currently preparing to study abroad in South Korea, what is one advice you would give them?
I think when you're coming up with your study plan and personal statement, center a lot of what you're going to talk about around how you're going to bridge the cultural gap between Korea and Kenya. Focus quite a lot on that. It doesn't matter if it's in engineering, it doesn't matter if it's in medicine or architecture or anything. Always round back, like as you're writing your paragraph about why you want to go to study in Korea, always round back to how much of an asset you're going to be to Korean society when you come back to your country. Like for example, in my case, the nuclear society of Kenya that I'm forming, it's with the blessings of Koreans. Like literally, they're my partners in this. They're the ones who are guiding me, telling me, add this clause, do this. Always present yourself as an ambassador. Because at the end of the day, even though they're giving you the scholarship, they're pragmatists. They're not just doing it for the sake of it. They're investing in you, hoping that once you're done, you're going to come and be an asset to them. So always do that. It's a win-win situation, right? As human beings, we're used to, if you're getting something, someone else is losing. No, that's not the case. Both of you can win at the same time.
Amazing.
Yes, and also I think as when we share those links, I'm always going to be around to guide if they're interested. I mentioned that 2024 is the year of networking. Yeah? That's an opportunity to network with future engineers and future scientists.
Yes. And in fact, what I wanted to bring up, I'll put your LinkedIn. Do you prefer to be contacted on LinkedIn, or how should they contact you in case they have follow-up questions on Nuclear Society of Kenya or studying abroad in South Korea?
I think LinkedIn would be the better one, because most interactions are very structured and formal. If it's on Instagram, I might forget. So it's a lot better on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'll put the link in the description box, and anyone who would want to get in touch with you, they'll do so.
Definitely. That would be very nice. Not really.
Now I want you to close in Korean language. Just tell our audience bye until the next episode.
안녕히 계세요. 다음에 만나요.
Bye.